Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Wednesday. So, yes. I've got now until next October 6 weddings. I'm in 2 of them. No, I was joking. 2 years.
6 weddings to 6 different brides. Apparently, family members who just like officiate weddings in Vermont. That's what my fiance did for his sister. He officiated her wedding. And I think he just had to fill out like a sheet of paper or whatever.
Yeah.
Do it.
There are certain states where they really don't care.
Yeah.
A friend of mine got married in Florida, and that's what she did. Something, it was like something in ministry.com.
Yeah.
It was like 20 first email. That's like, all right. Even that, you spend
Or rabbinical school. Yeah, there are other religions.
Yeah.
How was your Memorial Day weekend, Joe?
It was, thank you for asking. It was nice, yeah. I went to Staten Island, by the beach. It's not as, it's so not as glamorous as you just made it seem. Like, ooh, Staten Island. Oh no, I don't really go out there. I have family out there. We just decided to go out there, so it was nice. Being by the beach was nice. That in itself is worth the trip out there.
You went to that grandma restaurant right off Staten? No, by that I mean they bring in the
No, but I would definitely go there. Yeah, slack that out to me, and I'd love to go. Yeah.
So you can go on.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's got to be an app. Is that like an app? Grandma.
Because it's like an outside learning day.
Yeah, I wish. You know how much we wouldn't cover if we did that?
That's outside. When it starts thunderstorming in an hour.
Yeah. And it's like a
I was giving a tour. Oh. Yeah. How big is your office? Very big. We look for people. Oh, you do? Google? I didn't say that. We ran into each other. Today. It's like I heard you talking about how like we saw her. Yeah. We ran into each other today. Yeah. I was getting a big bagel. I know you. She has to explain to her team member why she. You actually have to like leave. There are several different restaurants where you can get inside. There's a little food truck on one floor. Not really now. You like take a picture? Yeah.
I don't think it's as like mysterious as we all believe it to be.
It is unlike any office I've ever been in.
No doubt.
Probably about a mile away. have it there. Something like I was on 8 today. And I was like, oh, I can do it. We're at 8. Math app. Yes. It was actually I was like, it's the gross. Yeah. It's human. I know. I was like, that's a lot of 85-10. Well, if you walk through the train, trains are the worst. It's like 3 buildings over. So to the I had to walk to the avenue in the building to the train. Then walk from the train, like probably half an hour to Pasadena. Oh, I'm so sorry. The other day, and I drank the bottle of water. I'm always like that when I go. Like I can never get my children to rain. Like I'm walking to work and I'm like, or like when it's cool out, I'm like I'm breathing, and they get in the elevator, dripping. I'm like, the building was freezing today. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, something's fine. Like happy to say it. I'm What street? I grew up in Crown Heights, so I was like, what street?
Yeah, I was like, that's really like particular.
You know where Alice
But I was thinking around it. That's what. Depending on what street you cross.
It's up. But again, cross the road.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like. Oh yeah, I took the plastic off mine, but I wasn't ready to commit, so I texted and turned. I was like, oh, I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. Mine's been in my windows since last summer. Well, I mean, our windows are really close, like a 4-by shack. So like, I'm just too afraid of what happens if we try to remove it. Did you feel it? Like, no, it's just like in there, and then the frame is like keeping the back frame like sliding down, and then you have the bricks. Yeah, wait, actually, we have bricks. We have like my curling iron box is really big. No. Yeah, I'll take a picture. Oh my god. I live in a 4-foot shack.
I almost feel like that'll be the segue some way into class. jQuery! Get it? There's no connection there at all. I could not pull that one off. All right. So before we were introduced to JavaScript last week, you were working through, what were you working through here? Free Code Camp, right? Regular JavaScript, and then jQuery. This will definitely help you this week. Once again, just keep working through these. If you didn't finish them, finish them. At some point, not finish them. It's only to your advantage if you do that. 14 dev tool tricks just went further into like doing some more advanced things. And I don't know, did anyone decide to start reading this book? Okay. It's pretty in-depth. There's a lot going on there. It really is a lot of JavaScript. First chapter is kind of overview, and then he goes in. It's a lot of good stuff. But, I mean, there's so much material. I'd rather do more hands-on. Since you don't know JavaScript, do a little JavaScript thing versus reading chapters on like, this is what it does, this is what it does. And you're like, I still don't know what it does because you didn't do it. This is all about JavaScript is really about doing. It's not about conceptualizing things, it's about doing it. So we're going to get more into that. I was just going to start with just a little final project review. As I meet with everyone and we talk about projects, if I feel like something piqued my interest that I think the rest of the class would benefit from. Biana, I met with her earlier today, and I asked if, I could just talk about what we spoke about. And so just going to show a portfolio site that was made in another app. And some people have done that. They come to the class, they're like, hey, I made my portfolio site in this other app, and I really want to make my portfolio site. Like, that's where people feel like they can be most useful in this. And, a portfolio site like this, once again, based on your current skills, I would think you'd be able to kind of put these things together, right? I don't think this section here would be all that difficult, right? Here's your grid, rows and columns. This could be a flex box, an article, a side, an article, section, an article, some H3, some text and a button. That wouldn't be so hard to put together, right? They're stacked on top of each other. They're just different sections. If you can get one section like this section, you can reproduce it here. And then you just flip it, right? So that really went, H1, some paragraph text, a footer, really easy. So, but as we were talking, we were looking at some of these projects. So I was like, oh, let me see it. Click on more. So one of the limitations of that app is that you have to have the button. You can't click on the image. Like, you're forced to do the thing based on the application, right? Which gets you to a certain point. So Yana had taken the UX class here and had UX projects. And I was like, oh, these are pretty cool looking projects, right? This is pretty cool. This is what UX does, by the way. They do the research and they mock these things up. They have little tools that they actually test it. You can build this out. What's a tool, Yana, that you would use to build that out and test? What? Sketch? So they could actually click on this and make simulations. It's not real code. It's not real, but it's enough to sit down and be like, test out my app. What do you think, right? So I suggested building this out. Building even just this thing, this one screen and maybe a second screen, that could be enough for the project. So instead of building a portfolio site that already exists, the portfolio site exists, maybe a couple of tweaks, you can make it better, but why rebuild something that already exists when you have the opportunity to build something like this, like putting a navigation here and just finding icons. That's it, and making this button big, that's it. This could be even an image, and this is just text. You go over here, and this just looks like reproducible things, right? If you get this one, you get the other one. When you learn JavaScript, you learn, you can add JavaScript by clicking on the heart, and it'll turn red. Click on the heart again, it'll turn white again. That's JavaScript. Okay, the ability to click on something, maybe show this, get rid of this page and show this page to emulate single page app design. Right? Maybe you want to add something and put it in there. Right? Things like that. Or maybe just a form, to do a form with some drop downs. And there's a previous example that I've shown from the last class about a student that did that. Did an Airbnb thing and they pulled down drop downs of things. So that was just my advice. Where are you going to get the most bang for your effort? So, and since we're trying to push mobile, these are mobile. So just build one of these things, and then you'll have a better understanding of how to talk to a developer when you're talking mobile. I already built this, and I have this design. Here it is. You build out the rest of the backend functionality. Okay. Your mock-ups, if you were mocking something up, oh, I want to build an app like this, it could just be a rough draft. Circles, and little squiggly lines for text, icon. Do the same thing, picture. Once again, it doesn't have to be high def, anything, just show me something that would emulate what this is, okay? And I'll be meeting with more people and we'll be talking about projects, so every time I meet, I get a new idea, share it, maybe provide you more context on where you can use this best in your career versus just I'm just gonna do it because it looks cool. I don't know, is that gonna get you a promotion? Is that gonna get your career moving forward? So we shall move into jQuery, the wonderful world of jQuery. So last week, I kind of described JavaScript, right? And JavaScript is the language. So you have JavaScript. That's our language. I'm just going to do a little file. Okay? You start with this, and then you can create, or from this one library comes other, and I'm going to put here libraries, and I'm going to divide it into frameworks as well, okay? Because when it comes to libraries, we're going to have things like jQuery, that's a library. Something like D3 is a library. And what a library is just, you can take it or leave it. This thing has a lot of functionality, and we can use this one thing out of the functionality, or obviously, if you're reporting it, you're using it, right? The intent is to use something. You can use one little thing, or you can use 1,000 little things. And those 1,000 little things could be disconnected. You're using it over here, but this thing doesn't know what that's doing, and it doesn't care. Okay? And that's what jQuery is. It's just a library. Somebody said, hey, front-end developers need an easier, quicker way to build things out. Okay, I'm going to put together a bunch of things that I think developers would use, and they can pick and choose what they want. When it comes to frameworks, you're talking about things like React or Angular or maybe Vue. These frameworks are once again built on JavaScript. They're not the kind of thing you take or leave. You structure your application in the framework, and you may add some functionality using libraries. So I may build some sort of data visualization website using React to structure the site, and then I may use D3 to build charts and graphs, because that's what it does. It's great at building charts and graphs and all these beautiful data visualizations. React, Angular, Vue, they don't build charts and graphs. That's not their thing. Their thing is structuring an application. Okay, and it's very opinionated framework. How you write it, the structure, things depend on other things. That this is much more structured than this. Okay, and so we're going to be working with jQuery, which is once again kind of a bit more fluid. You can use a little here, you can use a little there. Things as we write our code are going to depend on other things, right? If I create a variable and I reference it later, I need to reference the same name. I can't like misspell it, right? So there's that kind of little dependency. Like you wrote something, when you reference it later, it should be the same thing. That thing should have existed, because if it doesn't, your code's going to break. All right? I'm just going to refresh this because I did add another little card here. I'm sure I added it down here. Oh, no. Thought I did. All right. So that was our intro to jQuery. Now I wanted to kind of discuss how it's being used out there. So I had an article here, React and jQuery, just to show you that jQuery, the reason why you're learning jQuery in a class like this, like for just intro level, is that 21 million websites use jQuery. jQuery's been around for a really long time. 21 million websites use jQuery. React, the other really hot thing on the market, which everyone wants to learn. Right now, they only recorded 773,000 websites are using. Okay, so React is still a very important part of building out websites. Okay, this is cool. This site will allow you to compare different technologies. So they then go and say, hey, jQuery is leading in the top 10,000 sites, right? Top 100,000 sites, 1 million sites, the entire web. That's why you learn jQuery. It is very important. Now, is React the future, or Angular the future, or Vue the future? Yeah, they build out they help you structure applications, and this is kind of where things are going, but this is huge out there. Okay, and it's there's a good chance you go into a company, then they'll have a website that's already built using jQuery. jQuery is also being used in things like, I don't know, Bootstrap, which is nope, not General Assembly. I wonder if General Assembly uses it. Bootstrap, which is one of the popular front-end frameworks. If you wanted to use Bootstrap, and I wanted to get started with Bootstrap, I would have to download jQuery right here. Boop. Okay, and Bootstrap is huge out there. Tons of sites use Bootstrap as a front-end layout framework, but at the same time, this thing provides you functionality, clicking on things, a little bit of animation, because jQuery is in here. They import jQuery. Because of that, you can do that. They also have Popperman and their Bootstrap min, but these are the dependencies if you wanted to use Bootstrap, okay? And there's lots of things in here that Bootstrap provides, like components and like all these things. A carousel, if you wanted to use a carousel, you know, here you can click through. That's jQuery right there. Okay, so they're importing jQuery to slide, right? And how do you think you slide through these things? Like maybe position absolute, move the thing out, right? There's some JavaScript logic that's running, but under the hood, all you have to do with something like this would be to import this, put your image somewhere here. All you do is put your images there, and you have a carousel. Ta-da! Like it's that easy if you're using Bootstrap to build something out, okay? It's not that hard. And then you look at a site and you're like, that's Bootstrap. So the last thing you want is to look like the site that uses the tool. You have to change some of the settings. You don't want it to look just like every other site. You want some uniqueness, okay? So jQuery is being used out there heavily, okay? And that's the reason why you're learning it. And as a kind of just an introduction into web development, it's gonna get you up to speed to build things out relatively easy, rather than building it straight up in JavaScript, because all these things are built on JavaScript, which means you could literally write the code that does all these things. That would take you forever, right? Some really smart people put these things together for a reason, and they worked out some logic that would probably twist your mind to try to work that through at this level, okay? So that is jQuery. That's why we're learning it. And jQuery, once again, is just going to provide you click, drops, animations, things, and you'll get to see some of the jQuery stuff that we'll be doing. So the intro to jQuery. So today, with our jQuery part 1, we're going to be grabbing elements. So we're going to go back and work with variables and target specific elements using the jQuery syntax. And this $ here represents jQuery, right? That $, that is jQuery, okay? And what we're gonna wind up doing is using jQuery to grab an element by its tag name, grab an element by its class, grab an element by its ID, right? So this would be grabbing an element by class, this would be by ID, this would be by its tag name, okay? And then we can grab it, and then once we have it, we can then update it using a few methods. I can grab its HTML. I can set HTML. So all these things here are going to have corresponding getters and setters, where I can grab the HTML that's on the page, or I can set the HTML that's on the page. I can grab the CSS that something has to determine if it has a specific property, or I can set a specific property on it. I can grab attributes like the source of an image, which means I can then set the source of an image, okay? So that's what we'll be doing, and then we'll be appending new elements. You're gonna get rid of some elements on the page, and you're gonna regenerate those just using jQuery. Just creating them using jQuery, okay? So, jQuery is JavaScript and it's open source, which means you can contribute to jQuery. If you're like, I've looked at the code, I think this would be great, you can be like, hey, Mr. jQuery, which would be great. People try to go out of their way to contribute to it, but it's just a collection of these battle-tested functions that increase the speed and stability of development. If we all are writing in the same way and using the same library, then it makes for some consistency. right? Versus doing it in JavaScript and maybe doing it a few different ways, okay? And why reinvent the wheel, okay? Hundreds of libraries. I just gave you a few over there, and some of these are frameworks also. It was written by this guy, John Resig. He lives in Brooklyn, believe it or not. And his motto was, write less, do more. That's what it's about. Don't, break your back trying to write code. It's about efficiencies. It's about, we need this project done by this time. How can you write it in the most efficient way that we get it done on time? Versus like, I'm just going to go the longest way around, and then it costs everyone money, right? So it makes it easier to work with CSS and HTML manipulation. Handle events. We'll be doing a lot of clicking events. Clicking on those little circles, changing the color. Clicking on the submit, grabbing the input that somebody types in for a new color. They have animations. We have things that slide up, slide down, fade in, fade out. They give us these methods, and we don't have to write any of them. They also have a way for us to make API calls. So AJAX just stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML, and it's just a construct for you to request data on the web. Server sends you data, and then you build the things when you get the data.
Like if you want to pull a map or something.
Yeah, like Google Maps is an API, right? If I needed to put pointers on the map, I may pull that data from another API like City Bikes. I might have a City Bike API, pull all the city bikes, latitude and longitudes, and then cycle through them, and then draw markers for each one that's there. Because I have Google Maps, and I have the City Bike data that has the data in the format that I need, I can then render that and draw a bike. So this is really powerful. Like this gets really cool when you start pulling data and like sending data. The immersive class really focuses a lot on that. It also covers some browser inconsistencies between Firefox and Opera and Chrome. And that's all happening under the hood. Like you don't have to figure it out. It's just done, okay? Now, what we had done the other day as part of our final project, we had imported it, right? So if I just go to CodePen, I'm just going to take a look at the projects, right? Oh, no, I'm just going to go to my dashboard, projects, final project demo, right? This is what we had done last time, right? When we set up our project, this isn't set up appropriately, just reach out to me and we'll get you set up. And we discussed importing it up here or down here, right? What we're going to see is that a lot of the times jQuery is imported up here in the head, but that's not the only place that you could import jQuery and or JavaScript files themselves, like index.js, just index. That's not any particular library. That's going to be your code to work with, okay? So we'll be doing the same thing as we imported today. I mean, it's imported in your project. When we work through it, we're going to be using the CodePen tool to kind of import it, just to make it easy. Okay, but just know where we can and should import it, right? And we took a look at some sites. We went to a few sites, took a look at how they imported jQuery, how they imported all those files, okay? That's what we're up to, and to get us all started, here I'm going to slack this out, so I'll be on a little code along. All right. So here, we're going to use this today to kind of rebuild parts of this. Ultimately here, everything's in the HTML. Everything that makes this thing up, it's right here in the HTML. We have, a body, we have the HTML, we have it all, okay? And I even have a section here, we can import all of our JavaScript libraries here, or we can do it in the CodePen in another place, right? So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to just get rid of that. I'm going to save it. And then we'll walk through, just once again, importing it again, so you know where to look for, okay? So we'll just start with, let me zoom in a little bit, so we can see. If I want to import jQuery, I could look online and be like, jQuery URL, and like find a CDN, or in the code pen, it really makes it easy. If I go to the JavaScript gear icon, I can just type in here. jQuery is already done. But if I get rid of jQuery here, and I was just to type jQuery or JQ, right? I would see jQuery pop up. It's at version 3.4.1. Okay, I click on that, and now I have the link to jQuery. All I would have to do, if I wanted to, right now we would be using jQuery. Our app would be fine with this right now. But if you wanted to like edit some stuff here and drag it into the other code pen, this code pen, you'd have to make sure jQuery is in here. I don't believe they have places where you import stuff here. I think it's you have to configure this thing the way you need it to be configured. So I would go back to the title, just type in script tab. It's a script tag that takes a source, and that's just equal to jQuery. That's it, okay? So try importing that. Open up the Mars code pen, fork it, always fork it so you have your copy, and just import the script tag in your head. Just want to confirm everyone knows where that goes, okay? Import jQuery into the head. Okay. Just slacked out the link, the whole structure. At this point in time, it is redundant because we have jQuery here and we have jQuery there. It's not going to break anything, not going to do anything. But visually, I'd like you to always stay focused on that. It's like, where's jQuery coming from? It's coming from there. That's where it's going to come from, for the most part. If you go to a site that has jQuery. Okay. And now we have access to jQuery. Now, how do we know we have access to jQuery? Well, the $ becomes the global jQuery object, which means the whole world of jQuery is stored inside this thing, and we just need to know how to access the things that are in there. Okay? And so $ is the main thing. You know, if I go to just developer tools to take a look, spend some time here, I'm not getting any errors, which is good, right? There's no errors here. I think if I just type $ or I console log, hey, console log $, let's see what I get. Boom, I get this, which is jQuery, right? Once again, I don't understand what the hell's going on. It's a function that takes in these two things and it does all this. I don't know. It's pretty complicated, the jQuery library. But if I get that, I know that it's working, okay? Don't do this, I'm just gonna simulate it. But if I was to go here and remove jQuery from there and comment out this script tag, I will get a very different thing that says $ is not defined. This is gonna be the same error if you decide to use Google Maps, but you didn't import the JavaScript library for Google Maps. Or React, but you did not import the React library. You're going to get the same thing. The thing that references the global thing that you imported, if it's not there, but you're referencing it, then you're going to get an error that targets that thing. So just know that. This is consistent. So when you're working on the labs, if things aren't working as you think they should, go to developer tools and confirm that it's imported. Because sometimes in the labs, it's like import jQuery library, right? Make sure that it works. That could be the thing that's holding you back, right? So we know that that works. I'll just go back here. I'll undo this, okay? Once again, as we get through like more jQuery stuff, I'm not gonna have a full head and body. It's just gonna be what we need to get done. That's like pretty much overkill. Now, grabbing the elements. Okay, we want to grab elements. So I'm just going to take a look here and see that I have quite a few elements. Some things just have tag names, a header, a div, body. Other things have an ID, navigation, and yet other things have classes, and classes were meant to be assigned to multiple things. IDs to one thing, tag names. Once again, you could literally have as many of them as you want, depending on the structure, right? So I'm going to go here. Grabbing the elements by tag name. So grab the body and store it in a variable. We covered variables last week, and some of the variables that we discussed using, but the ones that we are going to use are things like let's, const, and var. Okay? And I said, don't use this one. Use these two. And for the most part, that's the one we're going to use 95% of the time. Okay? So these are variable keywords. These are the keywords that we're going to use to define a variable. Okay? That being the case, I want to create or grab the body. So I would say, hey, that's the keyword. What do you want to call the thing? This is a storage thing. All right, what's the name of our variable? Body. I'm just going to call it body. Equals, and this is where we use jQuery to grab it. $, opening and closing, parens, single quotes, and the thing that you're looking to grab. Okay?
Does it have to be single?
Oh, it could be double quotes. I like using single quotes. I try to standardize my things, only use single quotes, but double quotes could just as much. We've grabbed the body. How do we know we've grabbed the body? I'm going to console log and say, hey, this is the body. And then I'm just going to output the variable. We're going to use console log all the time, for quite some time, next couple of classes, and we'll pull back on it. But this is our tool to test that things are what we expect them to be. Is there a body? Did I grab the body? Sure. So if I do that, and if I grab the body, I'm just going to save this. I'm going to get rid of my error messages. Let me just see. I'm going to refresh it. It's still telling me that $sign is not defined, right? $sign is that. So that's breaking my code. So I'm going to go here and import jQuery here, okay? Which you would have already had, right? You would have had jQuery there. When I checked, it was there. So here I go. Here we are. So this is body, and now we grab the body, okay? No, all we did was grab it. Like, what we're giving is the body to you, but we didn't say what to do with it. So you have it if you want to do something with it, right? So we know, this is just us testing things, testing that we have the body, right? It's easy enough, okay? Paste it in Slack, that's what we just did. So I could also grab the header. Let header, once again, when you create your variables, give them a name that's consistent with what the thing is that you're going to store inside of it. So header is equal to $, opening and closing, curly braces, single quotes, header. And then console log, this is the header. And then output the header. This is going to come in real useful later. Okay? And then we should have two things, right? Body and header are being output. And then there's same kind of thing, right? Maybe there's a body, there's a header, there's this previous object. Like, don't worry about that. Just know that it's working. Okay? I'm going to save it. You get lost, you can just take a look at the code pin that I slacked out.
It's okay if there's multiple outputs.
Oh, I mean in the console? Here, yeah. So if I got rid of everything and I saved it and I refreshed, it's going to get rid of. This is when we console log jQuery. Now, the reason why we're adding this text is because when you look at this, you don't know what that was. You don't remember why you did it. So when you have a bunch of these things in the console, you're like, why did I do that again? This could have been like 3 days ago, yeah, but you don't need it anymore. But it's clogging up everything that's on the screen, right? You can always go here, see where it's like pen line number 3, tells me where these console logs are coming from, where these things. If I click on this link here, it takes me to where in my code that thing was, and I can then go and comment it out. I can get rid of it. I can do something with it. These are going to be really useful later when you do have errors. It's going to tell you where it errored out, and I'm going to be like, all right, let's go to the error. Let's take a look. What happened? Did you miss something? Right? Because if you were to say, I don't know, miss that single quote, right? What kind of error would we get? An error, look, invalid or unexpected token. Like, what is that? What is a token? What is that? Right? I don't know. I know that on line 14 is where I expect to see the error, and then I would just go to line 14 and see like, okay, this is where it's telling me it's an error, little squiggly lines, right? And then I examine this, and I'm like, oh, snap, I'm missing a single quote, right? This worked, this didn't. A lot of the times you're going to have to decipher things. You're going to have to look at what you wrote, compared with what you know works, okay? So then I would go back, add the single quote, and everything should be back to normal, right? Okay. So here we go. Grab the footer. Grab the footer. So I'm going to leave it up to you now. Grab the H1 and store it in a variable, console log it. Grab the footer. Do these two. Give it a shot on your own. I gave you examples on how to do it. Do the same thing with the H1 and the same thing with the footer. Console log it. Make sure your syntax is on point. If you get an error, investigate the error. Okay? Put a thumbs up when you're done with the H1 and the footer and you console log in. It's all good. Click on the thumbs up. I want to make sure. This is really important. This syntax is crazy important. You miss something, you don't type it correctly, you're just going to be dealing with errors, and errors are crazy, crazy frustrating. I can't tell you how frustrating they are. Okay. Put it up here, just kind of work through it. Then letter H1. I can call this whatever I want. The variable has to be called let. Has to be called let or const or var, but we're only going to stick with let. That's what we want to do. And then it just has to equal this syntax, right? Whatever it is the name that you're targeting, whatever it is the name that you're targeting. That's it. When we did this, there was only one thing. There was only one footer. There was only one H1, right? If I wanted to grab all of the divs that are on the page, well, there's a lot of divs. There's this div. There's a lot of divs. There's this div, that div, that div. There's a lot of divs on the page. So I could also, so let divs plural, because now I'm grabbing more than one thing, right, is equal to $, opening and closing curly braces, single quotes, div. And then I'm just going to console log. These are divs, right? And what you'll see is you grabbed a lot of things. See all these things that you grabbed? All these divs that had different classes associated with them, right? All of them. They're all there now. Once again, it's a pretty broad stroke to capture all of the divs, but think of maybe you want to grab all the LIs within a UL and a specific UL and update them all with something. We could do that, right? We could use some of these methods here to be like, hey, I want to select all of my to-do items and say they are done. Then I would select all the LIs within a specific path, give them CSS, add a class of done, and that would like put a line through them. And then we're done, right? So sometimes you grab one element because you want to update a single thing, and then sometimes you grab multiple elements because you want to update or change multiple things, okay? Now, we're able to grab all these elements by tag name, but we can also grab elements based on an ID. I only have one ID up here, and it's an ID of navigation. So I only have one ID that I created for my nav. It's an ID of navigation. So I'm going to say, you know, nav is equal to $, curly parens, single quotes. This time, because we are grabbing an ID, we have to precede the thing with $, and navigation. Okay, just like we would target in CSS. No, we went into CSS, and I wanted to give this thing a specific CSS. This is how I would write the rule in CSS or target that element, right? Now I'm going to console log. Hey, this is nav, and I'm going to say nav, and I just want to make sure once again, this is nav. It's got one thing. Now, what I also want to point out here is this. Do you see the difference when we grab footer and when we grab navigation? Is there any difference in the information, right? You see all of this, and here you don't see it, right? Now, I had mentioned earlier that you should not, and, you know, we've emphasized this, there should only be one ID of navigation on this page, correct? IDs should be unique on every page. You should not duplicate IDs on a page. That's what classes are for. You can do it, and CSS will apply it. And so sometimes the question's like, hey, but I just added this ID to two things, and it worked. And then you're like, well, why'd you tell me I can't do it? It's bad practice, but the other reason is when it comes to JavaScript, JavaScript stops when it finds the first thing of that ID that matches what you were querying. Because it knows the rule is to have one unique thing on a page with that ID. And so it's like, I'm not even going to look for any more. You may have 10 more nav IDs, and I'm not going to find them for you because I'm only looking for one. Okay, that's the difference. So no, when you do an ID, you're only going to get back that one. And no one's writing. No one in this room is going to write an ID multiple times, right? I hope not. I hope we don't ever do that. Okay. I only have one ID to prove the point. I only had one. Now we're going to do it by class. So grab the elements with the class of description and store in a variable. So I'm just going to go here and see, like, where do I have? Oh, look, I have a class of description here, right? Once again, it could be just single elements that have the class, right? So grab an element with a class. So I'm just going to say maybe descript, just to keep it short. And now I'm going to grab a class. So I put a dot, and I do script shun, because that is the name of the class. Okay? And then I can console log. Hey, this is the description. And then just put, I mean, you can call it whatever you want. And I should see it. And because it's a class, we're back to adding all of this additional information because, hey, there may be more than one description on it, right? There is. Maybe. Okay? So I'm going to do the same thing with container, right? Let container is equal to dot container. Now, you could also do this. You could precede this. If we say we knew it was a div that had the container, right? Because a container could be assigned to what? Maybe main, maybe a section. I mean, class container could be used with a lot of different things. If I wanted to target something that just had a div of container, I could write it like that, just like you would do in normal CSS, right? This is normal CSS syntax. And if I console log, this is container, right? Container, I should see, rid of all this, here's my container. Okay? I know the containers inside body. If I really wanted to target this thing, I could even do this. Body div container. Just as you would target things in CSS, you can target them in jQuery. Right? The space means that the div container is a child of body. The no space here means that container is a class assigned directly to div. Okay? Sweet. And then the last one is just the article. So I'm going to say let article is equal to, once again, article. And I'm just going to console log it. Console log, this is article, article, and we should get the article too. All right? There's the article. Once again, I can be very specific about the article that I'm looking for. This is article inside of wrapper. So I could do this. Dot wrapper space article. All right. Now that wrapper is also inside what? It's inside of a container. So I could even do this. Dot container space wrapper space dot article, right? I did call this a class of article, right? Okay. And we'll still get the article. In the end.
Is it recommended for that?
So if you know, well, once again, if you are targeting, if your page has multiple articles, then you're going to want to target that one article. Remember, I'm using jQuery to grab something so I can edit the thing. So I can grab its text or add text. So you have to be very specific about which article you want to target, which container. So just as you would have done it in CSS to be like, I want this article to have a color of red for the fonts. If you just did a dot article, then everything that has a class of article is going to have that color, right? So be really specific about what you target. Okay? So that's not so hard, right? So using jQuery, using variables, grabbing the thing, either as a class and ID or an element name, tag name, fairly easy, right? It just requires practice, the syntax. You're going to fat finger this, things are going to break. Best practices here is do one small thing, test it. Make sure it works before you move on to the next thing. Make sure you don't have any errors. A lot of the times, this is just frustration that's going to come out of errors. All right. So you are now moving on to lab time. I'm going to paste the lab, fork the code pin, and I'll explain what I'm looking for. Okay? Now, I quickly removed the jQuery. Some of you might still have it, you might not. But first thing I want you to do is, here, import the script tag to the end of the body. So you have to import jQuery as a script. Confirm it works by console logging that, right? Move it into the head using the script tag and confirm it still works by console logging the $. We did that, right? Import it. I showed you how to import it, where to put it. Just make sure it works in here, okay? And then for questions, I just wanted you to answer a question like, which is the best place to import it and why? The head or the body? And if you needed to import another JS file that had custom jQuery, would you place it above or below the jQuery file itself? Okay? Once again, if you don't get around other questions, no big. Then the exercise itself is just grabbing some of these elements. You're going to practice grabbing these elements, okay? Just grab the elements. Do not continue to part 2. You're only going to be doing part 1, okay? Just practice on grabbing elements. So I will set the timer here. I'm going to say, all right, setting it for about 15 minutes. This is just kind of repetitive action. And I put a thumbs up, so when you are done with it, just click on the thumbs up so I get a heads up. 7. Just part 1, yeah. I didn't teach part 2. No, we only have about another 2 minutes. Just, yeah, I mean, I'm doing the console log so you practice with the console log, so that becomes a natural tool that you'll console log. But yeah, you didn't have to. Would have taken longer. Or is it a ever allowed? Yeah. You console log it if you get errors. Like if things aren't working, go back and console log. There's one broken thing. Like if I break my H1 here, I'm just gonna have like broken code. So even if I did have a console log here, I didn't put console logs. This is H1. H1. It's not gonna work. Like none of my code after that error is gonna work. And it's just like another mechanism. The other way to console log would be to use that string interpolation that should work. Let me just do that. Yeah. Oh, but it doesn't do it. See this? Doesn't do it. So we're not going to do that. All right. So, 9. All right. Sweet. All right. So we're done. Once again, this was just redoing what you were doing before. This wasn't anything new. I'm not trying to trip you up. I'm just really trying to emphasize that I write these because I already know that syntax is key and like missing little things just to show you, you know, because I didn't put that little single quote, I'm going to get an error, unexpected token, and none of the rest of my code would work. Like it's really broken. I could have another console log right under this P just to say, hey, this is P, right? Just to do that. And if I went back here and I got rid of all my errors, I refresh this, I'll just refresh it. Nothing's going to work. This is what I'm trying to emphasize. One little mistake and things don't work. So you can have hundreds of lines of code. That first line, if it's broken, everything else breaks. You have to go fix it. You have to go figure out. So it's really important syntax. Here. Yeah, the developer tools will. Sometimes it tells you where you think it is, and sometimes the code is interpreting it, and it thinks it's down here when it's not. It's like up here. It's a tricky thing. It's not always as intuitive as, oh, this is where it is. Sometimes that's not it. It may take you to the next line because it's interpreting that code and being like, oh, I think it should be here also. So it's not always as easy. Text editors have like pre-built and like tools to kind of discover it. You could also go here, if you're really confused, and you could go here to the drop down and say analyze JS. Analyze the JS will take you here that says undefined. Now, we know that that's not the error, right? Undefined, undefined. It's pretty weird that it's just telling us all these undefined. So I'm just gonna get rid of that just to see. If I analyze the JS again, did it give it to me? Yeah. Undefined. So this is kind of weird that it's giving me all these errors when I know that that's. Can I read message? Unexpected. Oh, maybe I didn't fix my thing. Oh, see, I didn't fix it. One little tiny thing, and it's like all these unexpected parens. But the minute I add that and I analyze, it'll get rid of it. So once again, it could be one of these things like, well, where are all these errors coming from? I don't know. All right. So easy enough, grabbing the elements, storing it, right? Here was a H1, here's a paragraph, here's an input. You grab the elements by name. Here you grab them by class name. So you proceed it with a dot. Okay? You get more than one thing, right? There's lots of LIs with colors, so you get more than one thing. And then by ID, you just put a pound sign and you grab it. It's easy enough, just lots of practice. Sweet. So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a 5-minute break, come back, and then we'll jump into some of the more fun stuff. This is like the most fun thing to do. So, a 5-minute break, and we'll start working. What's up?
Still gonna fix
Oh, there's a drop down here. It'll tidy and analyze. So when you're sending me code, like this doesn't work. Analyze it first, see if you can figure it out, tidy it up before you send it to me, just so that everything looks nice and neat. Just makes it, that's what I'm gonna do. Like if you send it to me and I do analyze and I see the error, I'm gonna be like, analyze it. I'm not trying to be cruel, but it's like you need to know how to solve it on your own. You know, and if the error is there, and I know if you looked at it, you would figure it out, that's where you need to get to, right? Yes. So let's move on. All right, so we grabbed elements. Enjoy these easy things. Things get more complicated. This is kind of the easy stuff right now. This is also not too complicated. This is where things get kind of interesting. We are going to now start working with methods. So this little dot, these parens right here, okay? These things, all of them are methods. That's a method, that's a method, and that's a method. And these methods allow us to do things, okay? Some of the methods are going to be getters and setters, where we get information, and then other methods are where we set information, okay? So I'm going to go back here. I'm in part 2 of the color switcher. So I'm in the part 2. So go back to part 2. Now, if you didn't do or code along, you have what I did. You can open it. You can fork it right now. You'd slack it out. It's one of the first things I did. So we have the h1 variable already stored here. That was the first thing that we did in this step, right? So I'm not going to recreate the h1 variable because it exists, right? So I want to do this. I want to, using the h1 variable, grab the element's HTML. So if I look at the h1, I just want to see what I'm going to be grabbing. The h1 here has the text, color scheme switch. It has that text. I want to grab that text. So I'm going to do this. Oh, where's my mouse? I'm going to say, I'm going to console log h1 dot HTML, open and closing parens. Okay? So any element that you grabbed as a variable, you have access to. You have a handle on it. That's why we store them as variables, because then through the rest of our code, we can grab those things. We can mutate the data. So now if I go here, look, I have the text, color scheme switcher. That's the text that we grabbed, right? So this right here, just going to put a note, dot HTML is a getter. It retrieves what's stored as HTML inside that element. But in that instance, so I'm going to say HTML, here we go, in this, maybe this, in this instance is a getter, okay? because now I want to set the date. So once again, if I were to just grab the elements, H1, this is all I did, and I just did .html, opening and closing, this is a getter. It grabs the date. So say now, like, hey, I want to set it, I'm just doing it out the long way here. If I do HTML and give it some content, and say, you know, new content, whatever it is, whatever you want to say, this is an H1, so we're really just looking to put in some text. At that point in time, that's a setting. So if you give it something, it's going to write it on the screen. If you don't give it anything, if it's empty, empty means it grabs. Okay? So let's add something to the screen, right? So replace the content of the H1 to learning JavaScript. So I'm going to say h1.html, and in here I'm going to put some text. Learning JavaScript. And it updates it on the screen. Now, where does it update this? Does anyone know where this is actually being updated? What's the virtual representation of the HTML? What do we call that? That word, it's this word. The DOM, the document object model. It's everything that you see when you look at the Elements tab. Okay, so if I highlight this, this is where it's updated, but it's not updated in the HTML. Look, the HTML still has colors, scheme switcher. We can't edit this file. We can only edit the virtual representation. Now, once this file is loaded, everything here, we have mastery over. We can add, remove, delete, update, anything we want to do. So it all happens there. And I don't need to console log this because I wanted to see it change something, right? Okay. So we know what HTML does. You can grab or set. Now we want to do the same thing with CSS, .css, getter and setter. So I'm going to say here, h1.css, parens, single quotes, and the CSS property that you are looking to get color. Now, I'm also going to console log this. I forgot to console log it, because otherwise we won't see what's on the screen, right? I'm going to save it. I'm going to go to the console. I'm just going to move it up. Oh, yeah, I don't know why they keep doing that. Here we go. I just change it. Yeah, they updated their code pen and they just mess it up. So now if I go here, look what the color is. RGB, that's what it returns. RGB. So now I grabbed, so this is different, right? So before, setting and getting just involved empty and then give it content, right? Now I want to retrieve a property. Well, retrieving a property now involves, I'll do the shorthand now since we did grab h1 dot CSS. Now you have to tell it the property name that you are looking to retrieve. And we said color. It could be any property. It could be font size. Okay? It could be font weight, font family, anything. This is a getter now. This gets. It gets it based on the property, the CSS property name. Right? With HTML, there is no HTML name to grab. You just grab content. Here, in CSS, you kind of have to tell it what you want to grab. Okay? So this is a getter. So here, this was the getter, right? This gets, this sets, this is going to get, right? And if we want to set something now, we could say h1.css. What's the property that we want to set? Well, color is what I want to set. And what do you want to set it to? I can set it to any color. I could use RGB. I'm just going to sake of making it easy, just say red, and it should change it to be red. And so that now becomes a setter. It sets the CSS. And this is important. Like CSS is going to be a big deal later on when somebody clicks on something and you want to change something on the fly. So I'm going to use the h1.css color, comma, and the color that I want to set it to, red. Boom, and it changes it to red. Okay? Now you could do this with as many CSS properties as you want. And let's try doing it again. Let's try setting the font size. So h1.css font size, and I'm going to set it to 2 M's. Let me see, does that make it big? It makes it big. Font grew a little bit. Let me save that. Okay? No, we can aggregate them in here. So you combine both settings into one function. We can combine as many CSS properties as we want, or we could have done this too. So this is another thing. I could have done something like this. I could have taken this. Don't do this. I'm just showing it to you. I could have added it there. Got rid of that because that's going to error out. And it did change the font size, right? So what if I change that to maybe 3 M's? Is it going to go bigger? Yeah. I'm going to go back down to 2. So you could chain these things together. I could grab an H1, change it to HTML, change the CSS all in one shot. You could, okay? I'm just going to go back. You'll see that done a lot. I'm not going to leave it like that. We'll do it the long way now. If I wanted to combine both of those CSS settings into one shot, instead of having to do .css, blah, 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 and then .css, we could do this too. We could say h1.css, opening and closing parens, but this time use, whoops, this time use opening and closing curly braces. And now we just do color red. I'm going to comment out red here just to make sure it's working. Oh, it's not working. So color is in quotes red. Let me see. Quotes red. Yeah. Comma. I think we have to put font. I'm going to put font size in single quotes. And let me see. Do we need to do it to the ends? Yeah, we got to put this in single quotes too. Yeah. If it's 2 words, let me see if this would work. I want to see if font size would work without it. See how font size changed color? Font dash size. Right? That means that it's not seeing it as one single property name. It thinks that that dash represents something else. So I want to surround font size in single quotes to make it work. And now everything works. Okay? Once again, yeah, that would really be the only time I would use it. Or if the thing has spaces. If it has spaces, you got to do it too. And it just interprets this as something else. And so you could add CSS and target it. And if we do this, if we target the CSS like this, look how it changes here in the element. So if I go here and I grab the element, look at what we just did. And I had shown this in the past. Went to the Mars side, we saw some things, we went to food sense. What do you call this? When you add CSS directly to the thing, what type of CSS is that? Inline CSS. And I always said, don't ever do that. You don't write that in your HTML. It's just bad practice. But when you add it via JavaScript, JavaScript's like, listen, like, I know you have other CSS probably for this thing, but you told me JavaScript to like touch this thing and add it, so I need to like supersede anything else where CSS may have been written for this. And the closer you are in proximity to the thing and having style assigned to the thing versus a style tag versus CSS, well, adding it here really takes the cake. Like, it's like, I'm so close to you that I'm going to make the change. Nothing else will supersede that, okay? So you'll start to see, when you start looking through code or looking through a website and start to see styles added, that's going to be an indication JavaScript or jQuery or something is playing this game where it's added, okay? So we know how to add, retrieve, and set products, right? So you can either go single, one at a time, or you can do as many of them as you wish in one shot, right? Now, a lot of the times it's just adding a class, right? That's probably how I would do it. Put it in a class and then do it. We'll get to add class as well. There's lots of jQuery methods. Right now, what we want to do is now use ATTR, not everything. Here, if I go here, like, is there attributes? What do we got here? Type, that's an attribute. Placeholder is an attribute, right? Class is even an attribute for something, right? Classes and IDs, they are something that we've been working with, but anytime you see this, that's an attribute. That's an attribute, okay? Which means we can assign attributes to things like an ID. I can give it an ID using ATTR. So use ATTR to return the ID of the element in the UL variable. So once again, I'm going to console log UL, because we captured that earlier, dot ATTR parens single quotes ID. What I'm doing is I'm trying to elicit the ID of this thing. Okay? I go to my console, I should see switcher is the ID associated with this thing. Okay? You can confirm that in the HTML. If I go to the HTML, I'm just going to move it here, and I looked at the UL has an ID of switcher, so I grab the ID. Cool. So I'm going to remove the element. So this is our test to make sure that we can add it, right? So in here, I'm going to remove the ID of switcher, and look how it changes the HTML, right? This happens because we were targeting LIs that were children of switcher. And switcher removed, list style type none, these things, right? We want to add that back to fix this thing. So I'm going to go here. Now using ATTR, reassign the ID. Okay, so ul.attr, I want to assign an ID that is called switcher. Why does that not work? We assign the ID to the UL variable. So we grabbed it, commented out, so this won't have anything. So, just curious, why am I erroring out at all? Undefined. Oh, can anyone come to any assumption as to why UL isn't working? And where would you go to figure this out? It didn't change it, right? What am I grabbing right now? The UL, right? UL worked earlier, right up here when we grabbed the UL. Where would you go to at least like troubleshoot this? It's telling me that I can't do this because it actually said undefined. In the UL now, guess what? It's undefined. How did we grab the UL originally? Let UL equal to what? By its ID. I just removed its ID. So the thing is I can't grab it anymore based on its ID. So if I wanted to do this, I would have to do something like this now. $, boom, single quotes, UL, right? And then it comes back. Once again, because you remove the ID of the thing in the HTML, that was what we were using to target the thing. If it's gone, that variable is like, I don't know where that thing is anymore because you removed the ID of it. So I don't know where it is. Okay? So now we have to go back, and instead of creating a new variable, because the UL variable does exist, we don't want to go back and recreate another variable. We're just going to do this to target it and re-add it. And by doing this, we've added CSS to it, right? Because by removing it, CSS now has been removed because the thing isn't being targeted anymore, and now it's being targeted if we re-add it. So this is going to be key when you're doing classes. Grab the thing, add a class. Oh, you're going to see the thing change, right? Cool. Pretty easy so far. Not too complicated. All right. What was I doing? Oh, don't tell me I did that. So I was doing part 2 of the lab. We should have been over here. So I'm just going to flip it. We were doing I did the lab review, but I was going to do this as the code along, so I'll just put this, and this will be now the code along. This will be the lab. You'll do the same thing. It's the same thing that we just did. Okay? So this just turned into our lab. Okay? And once again, all the variables were created, so if you weren't coding along, I just slacked it out again. Here it is. Okay? Do everything that's in part 2 here. Okay? And then click on the thumbs up when you're done. CSS challenge for you. You want it? CSS challenge? I'm going to show it to you. All right. I just like you take a look at what I select you, and then you need to make the image look like that. Try to take this little image and make it that size. It's about 5 lines of code to do it. All right, now you bring it on. I just gave it to you. Here. All right. I think you have more space. You have more space.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe you'll come up with another way. Ocean. So you're gonna make it look like that.
Just CSS.
Just is. Shoot it to me. I want to see how you do it. Even spaces between them now. Is that even? I don't know.
Looked even on my screen.
It does look like a little more space here, no? Oh, you're hard coding. You're doing all that. I see. I see what you're doing. You're absolutely right. You get with this is you, right? Index. So what did you move around? You're just doing width and C index. Oh, you changed the margins of these things to pull them up. It is clever. You did it in less code than I did it. You might have to do it your way. That's how I did it. No. Take your time. No, they were. I was giving them a shot, see if they wanted to work on.
You're supposed to shrink it.
Supposed to make it look like the thing. Can you make it look like the thing?
I shrunk it.
Give it a couple of minutes, 2 more minutes. Too much space out. Too much space. You can always use that extra free time to like work on your project. Think about your project. What are you going to build out? You mock up the. Do you have your mock up? If you have it, take some of this time to build it out. Right. All right. So, once again, this was really similar to what we just did. What I try to do also, what I've learned is when we get into the more complicated things with JavaScript and jQuery and click events, I'll do something that is almost identical. And then you'll go and you'll do it. What I've seen is a lot of twists and turns. Like the thing is there's just a handful of things that changed, and people start going down these roads of doing things. Sometimes I don't even know where it came from. Like I didn't even teach that. I have no idea where that thing came from, that they're trying to do stuff. Maybe they research things. So I'm trying to keep the exercises in line with that. If we did this, I want you to kind of reproduce it. There will be some changes. These, once again, I'm just trying to get you adjusted to learning jQuery and grabbing things. So this was pretty much very simple, right? Almost identical. Grab the H1, console log. Change it. You could have changed it to anything. I didn't put anything in here to change it to. Grabbing the font weight. Once again, is using CSS dot CSS and whatever the CSS attribute that you are looking to grab. It could be anything that this thing has, right? I commented it out in CSS, and then I assigned the font weight, okay? And then the font weight took effect, right? Because if I get rid of this, the font weight should go back to what it was. Oh, I'm not sure why I didn't, but I did comment it out. Font size also, combine them into one using the curly brace, the property, colon, number, the quotes, around here. Is it? I thought I had it as, all right, so I remove it. No, I don't think when it's a number you don't need it. It should have worked. I'll fix it in a minute. Oh, you know why? Because I'm applying it here, that's why. So if I got, yeah, so I'm reapplying it here anyway, kind of doubling it up. Grab the ID, console login, make sure we get it, and then to reset it because I removed it in HTML, the nav doesn't have the ID anymore, we have to reset it. Okay, so that means you have to change how you grab the element. Now we have to grab that element directly. Or, once again, we could have said header, nav, right? It's container. We could have done dot container, header nav, however it is that you want to target this thing. All right. It's 8:25. Why don't we take another 5-minute break? Come back and then we'll look to start appending things. No. Pains. Pain. Yeah, that's a whole nother class, maybe. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that was present. Even though I left like 8:30. I was expecting like the trains to be sluggish and they weren't super. No, they didn't like take forever in between trains. Like I got to the station, it was already leaving. It was like, oh dang, and then okay, that's tomorrow, and when everyone's already on, yeah, that's when they're gonna let us. Yeah. We got some stragglers who were like, you know, I could use that extra data. Even the elevators, yeah, they have a ton. Yeah. Right. The elevators right outside transportation. So I just going to. I don't know which ones you put the white elevator for the dark. Oh, the white. Oh, okay. Yeah, the ones. They have a little truck. And they come fast. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Yes, we have like 40 sets of elevators. And 4 sleeping pods. That's very. Where's the others two? So there's one on 80. Are you on your thing? Are you on your working area? Can you make like go to that? Yeah. And just search for nap pods in there. Yeah. Well, I think there's a main hub which will tell you like just everything. Office. I know there's.
She's got her priorities straight.
Yeah. Go take a nap tomorrow. Because I know about the ones in Chelsea. Yeah. But I didn't know there were 4 at night. Yeah, there's. Well, they have nap space. Are these like the puppies? So the one I went to, I think it was on 4. Maybe. Yeah, like it was like there's like a screen and you play clothes or pull it open and it's like a chair and it has like a big dome on top of it. So it's like a little bit private. It's the white dome, right? Yeah, because I know of the 2 in Chelsea, but they're like we just hide them out. Yeah. Yeah, and there's 2 that are reciprocal, and there's 2 that like you get there and no one else is there. They're game. And I know about it's not really. I think it's not. I know about the nap spaces on the second. Maybe that's where it is. So I know there's like the bunk beds. Yeah, I did try that. I think that's some too, where it's like you have to take stairs up. I haven't actually been up. I know about because we have like I didn't know we had like a station, like where the thing turns around. I was doing that. Basically, because they had this time. Like, I didn't see oh, like I didn't think but you were in that time, probably that was stuff, right? I'm gonna go find them. I know where 2 are. Do it, take it down. I know, I see.
So I'm going to Slack out. I've forked and just edited the demo. I'm going to Slack that out. Should be a different one, right? MB, yeah. Got rid of all our JS. Now we're moving on to adding elements, creating and adding elements. Okay? Now that you know how to grab them, right, update them, you want to create new elements. So what I want to do is remove this Mars rover section right here. Once again, this is what we're going to be simulating is, or in the end, you'll see how this ties into that single page idea where I have the buttons. If I click on a button, it changes everything. Click on the other button, it changes the background, and it changes that text. Similar to that, but here we're going to actually get rid of everything. So here's our wrapper, right? So I have the wrapper right here. And I would say the wrapper is lines 25 to 33. That's it. We can see Mars rover as a class of description for this text. There's the text. There's a footer down here with an anchor, right? That's the wrapper. We're going to reproduce this whole thing. So in order to reproduce it, what we first need to do is just kind of get rid of it, right? I'm not going to delete it. All I'm going to do is comment it out so that the wrapper is gone. Where there once was a wrapper on the page, the wrapper is not. Now we have the structure. Now I know exactly how to build it out because I see it. Okay? So all you're going to do is comment it out. I select it out, the code pen, comment out in the HTML lines 25 to 33. Just comment it out and you should see the wrapper just disappear. Okay? And we'll go ahead and create elements and append new elements. Just going to keep it there as something to reference, right? Wrapper, I'm just looking. Wrapper is in container. Sweet. All right. So if we want to create a new element, okay? Creating a new element is similar to grabbing just one tiny little thing. Once again, I'm going to store things in variables. I'm going to say let wrapper equal to $, opening and closing, single quotes, right? We know that. That's the syntax. Now I'm going to do this. Now, it is a wrapper, and it is a div, so I'm just going to do this. Div. I just created something. I have not appended it, but I've created it. So there's a space of memory that's like, oh, it's up here. Whenever you're ready, you can add classes to it, add CSS to it, add other elements when you're ready, and then we can append it. But as of right now, it would just be a div and have nothing else associated with it, right? So now I want to add a class to the new element. Now that I have it created, I'm going to do a few things with it, right? It has a class. It's going to have children, and we're going to add those things later on. Because part of creating things is like nesting things. I'm going to create the parent. I'm going to create the child. I'm going to create doing this. So when we add a class, we're going to do it like this. Wrapper dot add class. This is a jQuery method. And then we just give it the name of the class that we want to add. Okay, and look, something appeared on the screen. There's something down here. It has, or is it? Am I just? No. Oh, I did. Look, was there? Wasn't there? It's odd because we haven't appended it yet. So I'm just going to take a look and see. Class title wrapper, more bar. Wrapper equal to, oh, here we go. That's why. The thing that I was saying that we needed to do here is put these. That was my bad. This is how we created that. Okay? The fact that we saw something on the screen meant that wrapper was grabbing any div that was there, and then we were adding a class of wrapper to it. And a class of wrapper has some CSS styling to it. And that's why it was on the screen. But I haven't yet appended this thing yet. The fact that it's not appended as of right now means we don't see it. So before, once again, a mistake. Remove these two. Don't do it. I'm just showing you. If I remove them, that is the act of grabbing an element. When you use the carets, the greater and the lesser than sign, you are creating an element. That's the difference. So anytime you see this, that's creating an element. Okay? Now that we have it, there's nothing else that needs to be assigned to wrapper in regards to like CSS. That's all being done via CSS, so we don't really have to do anything here. So what we're going to do now is append it to something, okay? Now, the order that which I would create my variables, it's kind of dependent on the order in which I'm going to access them. So we created the wrapper, and where are we going to append the wrapper to? The container. That's really where it belongs. So if I do a header here, is it in header? It's going to be in, I think it's in the, I'm just going to uncomment this out because I want to make sure that it's in, yeah. What was it? It's in the header. All right, so there we go. It's in the header right now. If I capsize the header, it's in the header. All right, so what we want to do is add the wrapper. Now, if you add things to something else, I would grab the thing that I'm going to add and put it at the top of the list. Okay, I wouldn't create the header here and then add it. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say let header equal to header, right? We only have one header on the page. Just a header, and that's both the nav and wrapper. Okay, that's really all I wanted to do. I wanted to grab the header. Now we're going to do this. Now we're going to append the wrapper to the header. We're going to do this. Header dot append wrapper. And what we see is an empty wrapper. Doesn't have any content yet. We need to create that content. We need to append it to the wrapper itself. So what we're doing here is add a class. Just going to put notes. Append the new element to the header or to whatever element you want to append it to. Okay, so these are additional methods, just as when we were using here HTML, CSS, and ETTR, they did things. Append does something, as well as a new method here, add class. That's going to add a new class.
Can you append elements to quotes that you want?
No, because this is a variable. Because it's a variable name, we don't put it in quotes. Otherwise, it treats it as though it is a literal string of text and not a variable, right? Because here, when we added the class of wrapper, we added a string of text called wrapper, okay? We could have stored this wrapper name in a variable and then referenced it later for whatever reasons. So now we have our wrapper, right? Now we have other things that we need to create. Okay, so the header would append the wrapper. In the end, because the wrapper is, I don't know, maybe like the last thing that we're going to append on the screen, I probably would move the wrapper all the way down because I would want to like create all these things, add them, and then add the last thing, like the parent thing, to the DOM. Okay, so we gave it a class wrapper, we added the wrapper. Now that the wrapper is up there, we could, once again, now that the wrapper is there, just create some of these other things. So let's just go ahead and create a new article. So create a new article, a div with a class of article. Okay? So once again, I'm going to say let article, since that I want to store it in a variable, is equal to $, parens, single quotes, open and closing, and inside of that, I'll put another div. I want to create another div. This is the process of creating a div. Okay? Same process, it has a class of article. So I would go here and say article.add class and article. That's what I want. So, in my notes here, add a class of article. Okay. Now we should, I mean, article, I don't know if article is going to have anything to show on the screen. I mean, the wrapper did. The article may not have any CSS associated with it. It may just have been something that contained the Mars rover. But let's go ahead and append the article to the wrapper, right? That's where it's going. So we grab wrapper, dot append, article. Doesn't look like anything really happened, right? Once again, I'm going to go take a look. I'm going to see that there's no errors. Like, are there any errors? I don't see anything in here that states that there's errors. I'm going to go take a look at the HTML and see, did it truly add an article, right? We added the thing, but once again, it doesn't really have it. It was probably more structural in nature versus like something that had some presence, right? You can't see the article, but you can see the content inside the article. Awesome. So we know that the article exists. What's the next thing we need to create? An H1 that's inside the article, right? This H1 belongs to the article. So let's create a new H1. Now the H1 doesn't have a class, it's just an H1. So let H1 equal to $, opening and closing parens, single quotes, less than H1, greater than. That creates it, stores it in memory. Now, we want to add text to this thing, right? The text that we want, I had here, was Mars rover. Once again, you can add whatever you want. We know how to use the HTML method. So this would be h1.html, parens, single quotes, and I'm going to say Mars rover. That's it. Again, you can do whatever you want there. Easy enough. What are we appending it to? The article, right? So I'm going to say article dot append the H1, and look, the H1 magically appears out of nowhere. The reason why this is really important is because what you'll be doing at times is grabbing data. I'll make an API call, I'll grab data, and then I need to create those elements on the page. And so what we're doing now is I'm creating this thing. I would grab the information and then generate these elements on the fly. It'd be like magic, they would be created. They won't be hard-coded in the HTML. Not everything is hard-coded in the HTML. There is a lot when you go to websites that are there, and then some of the content is dynamically generated. So when you click on something, new things come in. Where do those new things come from? They can be created dynamically on the fly. So that's what we're emulating, creating things dynamically on the fly. Okay? So let's add another, we want to add the text, right? So I'm going to say here, create a new P tag or a paragraph, right? Because that's the next thing that's underneath here, right? Oh, it's actually not a P tag, it's another div, create a new div for description, right? It's not a paragraph, it's a div. So once again, I'm gonna just go here and say let maybe DESC short for description is equal to $parens, single quotes, less than div, greater than, boom. We now have it. Just gonna add a class right now, right? We'll say description, DESC, that's what I call my variable, dot add class, parens, single quotes, and the name of the class, description. That's what it's called. Okay? And what are we appending it to? Not the H1. The H1 is its own thing. Not the wrapper. The article, right? All of this is inside of the article. The wrapper was just that big wrapper. The article contains everything else. So now I would say article dot append DESC, and it should append it, but what are we missing? The text. So I'm going to go back here between 23 and 24 and do DESC dot HTML. Once again, I have all this text. I'm just going to copy that text and paste it. I'm not going to write it all out. And boom, we have our thing. Right? Here's our text. Create the element, add a class to the element, give the element some text, append the element. I mean, the order of these, like adding a class, the class doesn't have to be added at that step. The class could have been added here. It doesn't really make a difference, these little steps. But creating the elements and appending the elements are the beginning and the ending of this thing. Created it, we appended it, done. If we need to, we can then grab it and add additional things to it, okay? But before you append it, you should probably give it the things that it needs to be the thing on the page, right? Okay, so that's that. All we need now is just the footer, right? So create a new footer. That's it. Same process. Now, the footer has a anchor tag also inside of it too, right? So it's got something inside of it. So what we'll do here is we'll say let footer is equal to $parens, single quotes, less than sign, footer greater than sign. Just created a footer. All right. Now, before we append the footer, why don't we create the anchor tag since it's nested inside of it? Why don't we say let anchor, maybe anchor is equal to $parens, single quotes, greater than anchor, less than and greater than, right? So now I have these two things, right? So what I want to do is give anchor, I mean, it has an href. We want to give anchor at least text right now, right? We could add the href right now, but that's not as important as us giving the anchor.html something that says more, right? Because that's what the button is. The button is more, right? And then we will append the anchor to the footer, and then append the footer to the article, and we will have completed this process. So I will, just going to expand this, so just in case, and say footer dot append anchor and article dot append footer. Let's see if this works. Oh, there it is. then we have our thing. Okay? So you may look at like a web page. If you looked at the code, you may just see like a head and a body and nothing inside the body. Everything is being generated by code. That's where kind of React comes in too. React is about tearing this thing down into smaller things, and this becomes created via code. I wouldn't put that in my HTML. I would generate it through my application, which would be React. In jQuery, you might want to do the same thing. It all depends on how you want to approach this project. Do you need to create it all as JavaScript and remove this? Imagine like removing all of this and being it all generated. Like, that's crazy. Why would they do that? Because maybe it's more efficient this way, creating reproducible things, right? Sweet. So creating, not too bad, right? The ability to create things. I think one of the things that I did say, like for single page app, the one that I did demo was this, right? And so this has these things. Now these things do exist already on the page. All I do is grab those elements and change them. And we have functions. We'll get into this later, but I have functions that grab all of those elements, and depending on what button you clicked, I change all of that text. I change the background image, I change the header, I change the button. All of it is changed. So I'm not really creating it on the fly, but I am changing it. Okay? But there's going to be a lot of instances where you are going to create things. You have to know how to create things using this construct. Okay? Just like taking it to the next level. I felt like, this wasn't so hard. This was maybe adding some complexity. Now you're adding elements. All we did really, think about it, was add a new method called add class and append. It's really all we did. We covered HTML, and create a thing, which is really just 2 additional symbols, and you've created a brand new thing. And the thing doesn't exist until you append it. Okay? So, based on that, let me see here. Here is a lab to create. So, let me slide this out. Here we go. So 3rd lab. So what I want is this. There's LIs here, right? This is just, once again, just practice. Originally, it was build the whole thing from scratch, but we don't have time to build the whole thing. So what I want you to do, I just slacked it out, is comment out just the UL and the LIs. Just comment that out so they disappear. You have the structure. You know what to do to create those things, right? So all I did was comment on line 20 to 25, and the UL and the buttons are now gone. And so now, what you would be doing is creating a new UL element and store it in a variable called UL. Using CSS method, add CSS that appears in the switcher. So I'm going to do this. Maybe we won't add the CSS. I'm going to get rid of this. Don't add the CSS right now. I really just want you to create it. CSS is added to the switcher at this point in time. Create a new rule. Use the ATTR method to add an ID of switcher. If we don't add the ID, we won't get the styling. And then using the append method, append the element to the color switcher element. Now, did we create color switcher element? Right, so I left something out. Just like we did before, right? I created wrapper and I was like, oh, I forgot about the header, the thing that I was going to add it to. So if you look here, you would see that this color switcher is a child of the section. So create the section and add it. Okay. We don't need to comment out any of the CSS. Don't do anything with the CSS. I really just want this to be about adding the elements. So don't comment out CSS. Just get the element onto the page, give it the class, and it'll inherit all the CSS it needs. Okay? Only because we're pressed for time too, and I really want you to get some hands-on with this. Cool? All right. What we've learned, should be able to do this. Once again, forget anywhere where I say comment out CSS and add. Don't do that. This is just about creating the element, adding an ID or a class, and appending the element. That's this exercise. I just added the code for the UL, just in case anyone wanted to get a head start. You'll only see it in the elements. So if you go to developer tools, you'll see that it exists. Okay? Well, I also added the white button too, so if you need to get started with the white button. You hit the white button, you get all the buttons. At that point in time, it's just naming conventions. And I added a thumbs up too. So, thumbs up. Like you're gonna give me another challenge. You want a challenge, don't you? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes, I would. Your other little challenge. Yeah. Don't look at the HTML.
Oh, no.
I'm just curious to see how you would structure HTML if you had to create something like that. Anyone getting like major errors? It just stays as a bullet point.
Yes.
So here, if I already created line 14, it should be just in
Okay.
legal.
Oh, I just,
It's either you click on, don't click on jQuery, click on yeah. See where it's in, see where there is. Send it to me, I'll take a look. All right, so you just sent it to me. Now all I got is this switcher is not defined. So I go to it. So UL attribute ID, and you're adding an ID of switcher because this has to be in quotes. All right?
this line's already in quotes.
Oh, maybe you didn't save yours? Yeah, if you didn't save yours, that's it, yeah. I won't see it, but did you save it now? Yeah. All right. There's no errors. So whatever you did, you just solved it. Like I just refreshed yours and I don't see any errors.
Maybe I just.
Yeah, sometimes just clear out the errors, start from scratch, like refresh the page, get rid of everything. Cool. So we got, all right, so I had gotten you started here, right? Creating the UL, adding an ID, which we had done just before, right? The previous exercise was adding IDs, we did it again. And then here I'm just grabbing the element that I want to append the thing to. That's it. I don't have to store it in a variable. It exists. I can grab it and append whatever I want. Now the UL is there. It's in the DOM. Then I go just to white button. And so with white button, I say I'm going to create an LI that I'm going to call white button. I'm going to give it an ID of white button. I'm going to give it a class of dimensions. Dimensions is what gives it its width and height. And then I grab the UL that we created earlier, and now it exists. And I append the white button. And the white button gets created. After this, it was the same process. Really, it just became a thing of repetition. Let gray button equal to LI. Okay, now use attr to, okay, so gray button dot attr ID and gray button. Yeah, using add class, gray button dot add class dimensions ul dot append gray button. And we should see the gray button appear. And then at that point in time, it's just the same thing. It's this whole thing just changing gray button to blue button. What you really could do is copy this thing now and just target wherever it says gray button, you would target it, change it to blue, and then we could easily have created a blue button instead. Okay? It's just the same repetitive process here. This repetition is key because later you're going to see the patterns and you're going to say, hey, you know what? There's got to be an easier way. Like, I'm creating all these things all the time. Like, I have to grab the thing, create it. Later on, what we're going to do is we're going to create a repetitive kind of machine called a function that creates LIs. Its job is to create LIs. And so what it'll do is it'll create an LI. It'll give it the ID that you tell it to give it. It'll give it the class that you tell it to give it. And it'll append it to the UL that you told it. And all we need to do is wrap up these 4 lines of code into one thing. And at that point in time, we have more efficiency. Our code becomes efficient. Here, it's just a tedious process of doing this over and over again. Okay? Did anyone hit any major errors, though? Your green button became a... do you want to shoot it and I can pull it up? I just want to take a look at an error. I think it's important. Like, if you had an error and you want to take a look at it, I think it'll help everyone figure out how to do something, right? Figure out one specific error. When it works, it's great, right? But if it wasn't working and you got an error here and an error there, then you're going to see where things can really just hold you back and you're going to get frustrated. This stuff can be incredibly frustrating, more so than like trying to get Flexbox to work in Grid. If you thought that was frustrating, this becomes 10 times more frustrating.
Is it like better to like write? Like, normally we would write most of that in HTML.
Yeah.
When is it best to write in JavaScript versus HTML?
I would say when you're dynamic, and it all depends. If you're using React, it's all going to be in JavaScript. Like the new tools do everything in JavaScript and they render HTML on the screen. But I would say for smaller websites that don't need or haven't been using React, then they're putting all their major content that I don't think is going to change for a regular basis. My header, like my nav, isn't going to change. I'm going to write my header, my footer. They're probably going to be consistent the lifetime, maybe make some edits. But if I needed to pull data from a database or an API to generate new content, like movies. So say I have an app like this. So say I have something like, I don't know, Flickr, right? Really basic thing. So here's Flickr, nothing's on the screen. I'm going to just NYC, and it gives me images of NYC, right? These images of NYC do not exist on the page beforehand, but I made an API call. I got back data, and then I created these things on the fly, right? If I only got 3 pictures, only 3 images would be on the screen, right? I'd limit it to only get 6 anyway, but that's an instance. If the data is coming dynamically, then you'll create those things on the fly when you need them. I won't put 6 placeholders for images and then grab them and populate them. I'll just create them on the fly, okay? Once the page refreshes, everything is cleared anyway. I need now to make another query, okay? So a lot of the times it's getting data or user interaction. User clicked on something. I want this whole page to change and generate something. You could do that. Single page app design is usually the content is either there and you just have display none, and I'm only displaying what I want. And if I click on this tab, then this div goes display none, disappears, but the tab I clicked on goes display block, and it's the only one showing up. So I could have 4 tabs, like 4 navigational things, and only the display block one is visible. And so I just toggle between those, right? They're there, I don't create them on the fly, okay? So, but you will create stuff. Like, it's a thing you have to know how to do. You have to know how to create. All right, any questions on what we're doing? How you think it may even play into your app or your site or whatnot, okay? I've seen people like pull things, pull their projects in. They figured out how to pull their projects in and just generated as many project divs as they had projects stored someplace, wherever that was, okay? An instance like this, where this would be useful, is see how the colors are hard-coded? There's sites out there where I can pull colors, and I could pull a color palette. So if I make an API call and I get a color palette, I don't know what colors I'm getting at that time. I don't know how many colors I'm getting. So I may say, give me 7 colors from that palette, make the call, get the thing, and then like, draw the LIs on the page that represent those specific colors, okay? That could be it. Awesome. Yeah, I think that yeah, I'll have to find it, but on the official gallery, the GA gallery, there was one where a student did pull in like 100 different colors to build up a palette. It was pretty cool. He used an API to do it, but that was a JavaScript class, so that was more advanced. Awesome. No questions, huh? All right, I'll just go over the homework and we'll bang out an exit ticket. So homework is final HTML design. Draw something. That's all I'm asking on a piece of paper. While you're on the train, give me something that's just like, I'm thinking about my project. Like, even if you didn't finalize it, this is my thought of what I want the thing to be, okay? And then you should start working on it. If you have a design and you think it's good, start working on the thing. Like, create something that I would suggest should be responsive or mobile, right? Think mobile first. Build it for mobile, and that'll limit you to the content to be key content and not fluff content, okay? There's an article here on reading jQuery click events, because we will be doing click events. All those buttons that we added, we're going to be clicking on those buttons and changing the background color, okay? And so you can just take a look here. The structure here is kind of similar or exact to what we're going to be doing, just the internals of it are going to be different, right? So this is just like, hey, test it. Click on this paragraph, right? And that, it just doesn't alert. That's it, right? And then there's a video on click events. I'm gonna watch
everyone,
this
it's Anthony from
quick video. Just they go through adding a click event. We're gonna do it. I'm just trying to like prepare you. This is a 7-minute video between now and Thursday. I'm guessing you got 7 minutes to watch the video. If not, okay, I get it. I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to, if you want to learn this stuff, you got to practice between now and then. Outside of that, just fill out an exit ticket. I'd like to see how the intro to JavaScript went pretty well. Exit tickets were probably the best thus far, and I never get awesome exit tickets on the intro to this JavaScript. It's always really difficult. So yeah, I'll slack out the exit ticket in case anyone doesn't have it. Or there we go, Heather. You did it, Heather. You did it.